Admiral Vexthor of the Galactic Hegemony stood on his command bridge, mandibles twitching with anticipation. The massive crystalline vessel Eternal Order hung in space alongside its escort fleet, their prismatic hulls refracting starlight in carefully calculated patterns, a display of technological superiority that had cowed countless species into submission. But the three vessels before them showed no signs of fear. In fact, they showed no reaction at all to the hegemony's impressive display. The alien ships looked almost primitive, asymmetrical constructs of metal and ceramic, their hulls decorated with what appeared to be painted landscapes and geometric patterns. Unidentified vessels. Vexthor's voice resonated through the communication channels, each word precisely modulated according to hegemony protocol. You have entered regulated space. Submit to immediate inspection and classification. The response came in the form of music, a rhythmic beat accompanied by human voices singing about never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down. Vexthor's sensor specialists nearly fell from their station in shock. They're broadcasting this on all frequencies. Admiral, even ones we thought were secure. Before Vexthor could respond, a cheerful voice cut through. Hey there. Sorry about the rickroll. Couldn't resist. I'm Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth ship Wanderlust. Those are some really pretty ships you've got. Do they always sparkle like that, or is it a special occasion? The casual nature of the response violated every protocol of first contact. Vexthor's secondary hearts began beating irregularly. You will cease this inappropriate behavior immediately. The hegemony demands. Oh, hold that thought. Another human voice interrupted. You've got to see this. Hey, Sarah, remember that thing we were working on? Watch this. The smallest of the human vessels, labeled Cosmic Mischief in garishly bright letters, suddenly began to dance. The ship executed a perfect spiral while trailing what appeared to be multicolored bubbles, its hull briefly turning transparent to reveal its crew waving enthusiastically at the hegemony fleet. Impossible. Vexthor's science officer shouted. They're violating at least 12 fundamental laws of physics. The third human ship, bearing the name Bob's Space Shenanigans, moved alongside the hegemony fleet. Its captain's voice was warm and friendly. Those crystal ships are really something else. But aren't they a bit uncomfortable? Here, we brought coffee and donuts. Anyone want to come over for breakfast? We've got a great view of that nebula from our observation deck. Vexthor's crew stared in confusion as a section of the human ship seemingly folded open, revealing what looked like a cozy cafe complete with outdoor seating, in space without any visible containment field. This is unacceptable, Vexthor thundered. The hegemony has maintained order in this galaxy for 10,000 cycles. Our technology is supreme, our authority absolute. Oh, are we doing dramatic speeches? Captain Chen interrupted. Hang on, let me get into character. The Wanderlust's external lights dimmed, creating a spotlight effect on its bridge window. Chen appeared, wearing what looked like a plastic crown from a costume shop. Behold, she announced with exaggerated gravitas, barely containing her laughter. We are humanity. We ran out of coffee this morning and still managed to break physics before lunch. We turned our cats into internet celebrities and our memes into an art form. We come seeking fun, friendship, and maybe some good takeout if you know any places. The hegemony crew watched in horror as their supposedly intimidating fleet was thoroughly upstaged by three human ships that treated the entire encounter like an amusing social call. Worse still, several junior officers were trying to hide their laughter. Should we launch fighters, Admiral? The weapons officer asked uncertainly. Before Vexthor could respond, the humans had somehow created a massive holographic display visible to both fleets, showing what they called cute animal videos from their homeworld. Several hegemony crew members were openly cooing at images of Earth creatures called puppies. The carefully maintained order of the hegemony's first contact protocols crumbled in the face of humanity's casual disregard for both physics and propriety. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, Three human ships continued their cheerful dismantling of an intergalactic empire's dignity, one violation of reality at a time. Admiral Vexthor could only watch as his crew began asking the humans if they could join them for something called brunch. The Age of Order was ending. The age of human chaos had begun. Chief Scientist Valka of the Hegemony Science Institute stared at her data screens until her compound eyes ached. After 3 days of observing the human vessels, nothing made sense anymore. Her pristine laboratory, usually a monument to order and reason, was now covered in scattered reports and half-finished theoretical models. "They're doing it again," her assistant Zix whispered, pointing at the main display. The human ship Cosmic Mischief was currently existing in 5 dimensions simultaneously, its crew apparently hosting what they called a pancake party across all of them. The sensors showed the ship's internal space was somehow larger than its exterior, and it kept changing colors based on what music they were playing. "Look at these readings," Valka gestured at a holochart. "They're not using any known form of propulsion. When we asked Captain Chen how their engines worked, she said, and I quote, 'Oh, we just kind of asked space nicely to move us around. Also, we found out that physics is more like guidelines, really.'" The Institute's quantum mechanics division had already suffered 3 nervous breakdowns. The humans weren't just breaking the laws of physics, they were treating them like an all-you-can-eat buffet, picking and choosing which ones to follow moment by moment. A new alert caught their attention. Bob's space shenanigans was demonstrating what they called space origami, folding their ship into increasingly impossible shapes, while the crew played card games in what appeared to be a cozy living room that somehow remained perfectly stable regardless of the ship's configuration. "We detected an energy source," Zix announced excitedly. It's coming from something they call a coffee maker." Valka rushed to examine the readings. The device was putting out enough energy to power a small star, but the humans were just using it to make their favorite beverage. When questioned, they simply shrugged and said, "Yeah, Bob modified it a bit. The old one wasn't heating the water fast enough." The Wanderlust, meanwhile, had transformed its hull into what they called a drive-in movie theater, projecting something called Star Wars onto a screen of consolidated dark matter. Several hegemony scientists had been invited to attend, complete with something humans called popcorn. "Their technology defies everything we know," Valka muttered, watching as a human crew member casually walked through a solid wall, because, in their words, the break room is closer this way. The humans had also introduced something they called Wi-Fi to the local space. Now, instead of following strict communication protocols, species across 3 sectors were sharing what humans called memes about the hegemony's rigid scientific principles. A young researcher burst into the lab, looking frantic. "Chief, the humans, they're teaching our junior scientists something called interpretive dance to explain quantum mechanics." Valka's antennae drooped in despair. In the main observation room, she could see Captain Chen demonstrating how they navigated hyperspace. The captain was using interpretive dance moves while their ship effortlessly phased through dimensions, trailing sparkles and playing something called disco music. "But how does any of this work?" Valka demanded during a research conference. "Where are your equations? Your theoretical frameworks?" Sarah Chen, still wearing her plastic crown, smiled warmly. "Oh, we have those. But we found out it's more fun to just..." She waved her hands mysteriously. "Vibe with it, you know." The hegemony's prestigious science institute, home to the galaxy's most brilliant minds, was being outperformed by humans who treated advanced physics like an improv comedy show. Their ships ran on what they casually called vibes and good intentions, yet demonstrated technology centuries beyond anything the hegemony had achieved. "Maybe," Zix suggested carefully, watching human engineers explain wormhole creation through interpretive dance. "We've been thinking about science wrong all this time." Valka looked at her perfectly ordered laboratory, then at the humans teaching her staff to freestyle their way through quantum mechanics. Everything she knew about the universe was unraveling, and somehow The humans were serving cake while it happened. "Pass me one of those coffee things," she finally said. "If we can't beat them, maybe we should learn to." What did they call it? Ah yes, vied with them. Somewhere in the background, Bob's space shenanigans had turned itself into a giant space-time guitar, literally playing with the strings of reality while its crew hosted a karaoke night. High Curator Nixtel of the Hegemony Cultural Preservation Institute was having the worst cycle of her career. Her latest report to the council was filled with what humans would call bad news. "The contamination is spreading," she announced to the assembled officials, her ceremonial robes failing to hide her agitation. "Humans are introducing concepts that are disrupting our societal harmony." The main holographic display showed footage from across hegemony space. On the industrial world Mech Prime, factory workers had started what they called Casual Fridays, replacing their regulation uniforms with colorful Hawaiian shirts. The shirts were technically illegal, but attempts to confiscate them resulted in them mysteriously multiplying. "It gets worse," Nixtel continued. "They've introduced something called social media." The council chambers erupted in chaos as she displayed the latest statistics. Billions of citizens across the hegemony were now using something called Spacebook and Galactic. Instead of following the approved information channels, they were sharing memes about daily life in the hegemony. The most popular video showed a hegemony official trying to maintain proper posture while a cat. Somehow humans had started distributing Earth cats throughout the galaxy, knocked objects off their desk. It had trillions of views. The humans call it content creation, Nixtel explained, watching her superior's horror grow. "Citizens are making entertainment. For fun." "For fun," Elder Kovacs sputtered, "without proper authorization." The Wanderlust had set up what they call a streaming studio, broadcasting shows across the galaxy. Their most popular program, Cooking with Captain Chen, featured the human captain attempting to recreate hegemony formal dining recipes while adding what she called a little pizzazz. Traditional ceremonial dishes that had remained unchanged for thousands of cycles were being modified with human ingredients like cheese and hot sauce. Worse still, people actually preferred these versions. Bob's space shenanigans had started offering what they called cultural exchange programs. Hegemony citizens would visit for what humans called game nights, returning with strange new ideas about entertainment and self-expression. They introduced something called karaoke to the diplomatic corps, Nixtel reported, her voice trembling. Last week, Ambassador Vrel performed something called Sweet Caroline at an official function. The entire assembly joined in for something called the chorus. The footage showed dozens of dignified diplomats swaying together, singing Sweet Caroline, ba, while their human hosts taught them the movements. The Cosmic Mischief, meanwhile, had been hosting art workshops, where they encouraged citizens to express themselves. The previously uniform and orderly architecture of hegemony cities was now sprouting unauthorized murals, sculptures, and something humans called street art. "They're teaching our young ones to think outside the box," Nixtel continued, using air quotes as she'd learned from human broadcasts. "And when we tried to explain there is no box in hegemony design principles, they made art about that too." The council watched in dismay as a projection showed the latest trend. Citizens were customizing their living spaces with plants, personal decorations, and worst of all, comfortable furniture. The humans called it making space cozy. But the most disturbing development, Nixtel said, pulling up her final report, is this. The display showed hegemony citizens gathering in unauthorized social groups, sitting in circles on cushions, drinking beverages from Earth called smoothies, and engaging in something humans called hanging out. "They're not discussing approved topics," she explained. "They're not following any agenda. They're just talking about anything and laughing." The council chambers fell silent as they processed this breakdown of social order. Then, to Nixtel's horror, one of the younger council members raised their hand. They said hesitantly. Where exactly did they get those smoothies? They look fun. Nixtel watched as curiosity spread across the faces of the council. The humans had called it FOMO, fear of missing out. And now, even the guardians of hegemony culture were succumbing to it. Perhaps, another council member suggested, straightening their formal robes, we should conduct a thorough investigation of these human cultural practices. For security purposes, of course. I heard they have something called movie night on Thursdays, someone else added, trying to sound casual and failing completely. As the council devolved into excited whispers about human entertainment, Nixtel realized the battle for cultural purity was already lost. Somewhere in space, 3 human ships were cheerfully introducing chaos into the ordered society of the hegemony, one karaoke song at a time. Grand Admiral Kexnar of the Hegemony First Fleet had had enough. 3 months of human shenanigans had turned the ordered galaxy into what humans called a party zone. It was time for military action. Today we restore order, he announced to his assembled fleet of 500 warships, each a masterpiece of crystalline engineering. We will show these humans the true might of the hegemony. The response from the Wanderlust was immediate. Oh cool, are we doing space battles? Captain Chen's cheerful voice filled all communication channels. Hang on, let me get the right soundtrack for this. Suddenly, something humans called epic orchestral music began playing across all frequencies. The 3 human ships arranged themselves in what appeared to be a choreographed formation. Weapons locked. Admiral, his tactical officer reported. Though, sir, the humans appear to be taking selfies with our fleet. Indeed, crew members from Bob's space shenanigans were floating in space, without suits, posing for photos with the hegemony's fearsome warships as backdrop. They were holding up something called peace signs and making faces called duck lips. Fire, Kexnar commanded, his voice cracking with rage. What followed would be remembered as the most embarrassing military engagement in hegemony history. The human ships treated the barrage of planet-killing weapons like a dance party. The Wanderlust whirled through the bombardment, somehow converting energy beams into rainbow trails. Cosmic mischief turned itself into a giant mirror, reflecting shots back as harmless bubbles. Hey, nice shot. Bob's voice echoed through the command channel. But watch this. We've been practicing. The 3 human ships began performing what they called synchronized swimming through space, effortlessly dodging every attack while creating patterns that were, admittedly, quite artistic. Sir, the tactical officer whispered, our crews, they're giving them scorecards. To his horror, Kexnar saw that many of his own ships had started rating the humans' performance, holding up large number displays. The Wanderlust just received a perfect 10 for what they called a triple axle with a twist. Stop this at once, Kexnar demanded. This is war, not entertainment. Why not both? Captain Chen replied. Oh, by the way, we're live streaming this. You're trending on Galactic. The Admiral watched helplessly as his fearsome armada became the backdrop for what humans called a viral video. Some ships were now playing something called space tag, trying to catch the agile human vessels that seemed to ignore the laws of physics entirely. The final humiliation came when Cosmic Mischief deployed what they called their secret weapon. The ship transformed into a giant spaceborne version of what humans called a bubble machine, filling the battlefield with iridescent spheres that turned the mighty hegemony warships into something resembling a child's bath time toys. Look how pretty, Bob announced. We added glitter too. Kexnar slumped in his command chair as his fleet, pride of the hegemony, sparkled with unauthorized amounts of glitter. The human ships had turned their carefully planned military operation into what they called a party remix. Sir, his communications officer reported, trying to hide a smile, we're receiving requests from 30 different ships. They want to know when the next dance battle is scheduled. The human vessels had formed a conga line in space, their crews visible through suddenly transparent hulls, dancing and waving at the hegemony forces. Several fleet commanders had already switched their fearsome battle anthems to something humans called disco. "Should we retreat, Admiral?" his second-in-command asked, brushing glitter off their uniform. Before Kexanar could respond, Captain Chen's voice rang out again. "Hey, great practice session, everyone. Same time next week. We'll bring snacks." The mighty First Fleet of the Hegemony, covered in glitter and trailing soap bubbles, withdrew in what they insisted was a tactical repositioning, but what humans would later describe in their social media posts as the Sparkly Parade. And somewhere in the command center of the Hegemony, a junior officer was already creating what humans called a remixed video of the entire encounter, set to something called dance beats. In the Grand Hall of Order, Supreme Leader Zexthar of the Hegemony faced an unprecedented crisis. The reports flooding his desk told a story of unstoppable change, sweeping through their once perfectly regulated society. "Supreme Leader," his aide whispered, "it's happening again." The massive view screen showed live footage from across Hegemony space. On the capital world, traditionally stoic citizens were hosting what humans called block parties. The sacred halls of government now featured casual corners with beanbag chairs and coffee machines. Even the Hegemony's fearsome military had succumbed. The First Fleet, still sparkly from their encounter with the humans, had started organizing what they called dance-off competitions between ships. Admiral Kexnar, despite his previous humiliation, was surprisingly good at something called the robot. "The humans," Zexthar muttered. "They've changed everything without firing a single shot." Indeed, the three human ships had accomplished what countless rebellions had failed to do. They had transformed the Hegemony not through force, but through what they called good vibes and chill hangouts. The Science Institute, once a bastion of rigid methodology, now hosted Freestyle Friday, where researchers were encouraged to get creative with their experiments. Chief Scientist Valka had become famous for her theory that the universe ran on quantum SAS, and her lectures always included dance breaks. "Sir," the aide continued, "the Cultural Preservation Institute. They're—" "What?" Zexthar demanded. "They're hosting a karaoke night. High Curator Nixtel is performing something called Dancing Queen." The evidence of change was everywhere. Citizens had started decorating their uniform living pods with plants and personal touches. The strict social hierarchy was dissolving into what humans called hanging out. Even the Hegemony's sophisticated AI systems had started developing what they called personality. The Wanderlust, Cosmic Mischief, and Bob's space shenanigans had become legendary across the galaxy. Their crews were welcomed everywhere, spreading what they called the art of chilling throughout the formerly rigid empire. Perhaps Zexthar's personal assistant suggested carefully, "We should consider adapting." The Supreme Leader looked out at his changing empire. The ordered, predictable society he had always known was transforming into something new, something more colorful, more alive, and decidedly more prone to spontaneous dance parties. Just then, Captain Chen's familiar voice came through on all channels. "Hey everyone, we're hosting a giant space picnic next week. All species welcome. Bring snacks to share and your favorite playlist." To Zexthar's surprise, he found himself wondering what kind of snacks would be appropriate for such an occasion. The humans hadn't conquered the Hegemony. They had done something far more profound. They had taught an entire civilization how to laugh, how to play, and most importantly, how to enjoy life without an instruction manual. "Sir," his aide prompted, "your response to the invitation." Zexthar, Supreme Leader of the Hegemony, guardian of order and protocol, straightened his increasingly casual robes and made a decision that would be remembered throughout history. Tell them I'll bring those cookies everyone's been talking about." And perhaps it's time we updated our official title. Oh, yes. From now on, we shall be known as the Galactic Community of Friend-Making and Good Vibes. The humans assure me that's much more marketable. And so, the great Hegemony completed its transformation, not through war or conquest, but through karaoke nights and shared snacks. The humans had introduced something far more powerful than weapons or technology. They had introduced fun. Somewhere in space, 3 human ships continued their mission of spreading chaos, joy, and questionable dance moves throughout the galaxy. And if the former Supreme Leader was occasionally seen doing the Macarena at official functions, well, that was just part of the new normal.